runs this town anyway? I got one question for you, Elaine. Who runs this town?
Who runs this town, Jade?
I'm asking you! Welcome to our very first installment of a show with no intros because Elaine doesn't like them, but I'm gonna sneak mine in. I'm Jade Esteban Estrada, and this is Elaine Wolf. Don't tell her I said that, but this is Who Runs This Town, and today we're gonna talk to
District 1 Councilman Diego Bernal.
Excited! Because there's so many exciting things happening in San Antonio that all have to do with District 1 because it's right in the center of the city.
He was elected in the spring of 2011. He was kind of a surprise winner out of a crowded field for what is very much a treasured district in San Antonio. It's really the core of the city. It represents downtown San Antonio and many of its most historic neighborhoods. He's young, he's about 35 years old. He's also well known as a musician. He's been very successful as a DJ, a civil rights attorney too. So he's got a very interesting background, and as you'll note, he's been a very quick study on city politics. So welcome, Who Runs This Town? So let's talk a little bit about the Alamo Stadium fight that went down at the San Antonio Independent School District Board. I got the feeling that you kind of shook it up a little bit when you appeared at that meeting and publicly opposed putting professional soccer in the stadium.
Right.
What made you decide to actually take that stand?
Well, my opposition was really about what was happening with the bond in terms of what people thought they were voting on and voted on, and what the board was saying they were potentially going to get. And I just wanted to make sure that the public understood, and it's in my district and we have a lot of overlapping constituents, that the city, we're not going to do that. We're not going to act that way. We're not going to be as cavalier and fast and loose as they were. So I wanted to make sure that they knew where I stood on it. I'd been hearing a lot about it. People had been coming to me with a lot of complaints and concerns, and at a certain point there's sort of a fever pitch in the district. People want to know how you feel. I told people over the course of a few weeks how I felt privately, but then I felt it was appropriate to go and say it publicly. I'm sure anything I do makes a few people or a number of people unhappy or uncomfortable, but I don't feel like there's been real opposition. I haven't gotten a lot of angry phone calls or emails. In fact, for the most part, people appreciate the fact that I'm taking a principled stand. And even if they disagree with me, they say, well, at least we know where you're coming from. They feel like they can follow my train of thought, and they like that, and I'm happy about that.
Let's talk a little bit specifically about your district and the bond that's coming up. A lot of that money is going to go towards Hemisphere. I think 30 million total, right? 15 million for streets, 15 million for the park.
Right. Well, that's part of the downtown citywide package, because what's interesting is that there's the downtown package, which is part of the citywide bond, and then there's the District 1 piece, which is more residential. That's one of the things we wanted to do. There has been a little bit of tension between downtown and the residential areas in the past. This is a way to alleviate that. Residential areas get, a lot of attention, and downtown, which is a priority for the entire city, gets a lot of attention.
Which key bond projects for District 1 are you most excited about? Which do you think will be most transformative?
Well, I mean, some are exciting and not sexy, and some are both, right? So exciting but not sexy is, let's say, McCullough drainage. For people who know, on McCullough by the freeway, it's a mess. The drainage is bad. The road is terrible. It's a tough road to traverse. It's near a school, and so finally getting to the bottom of that, spending about, I think it's $12 or $14 million, knocking that out. That's exciting. I recognize that in my district there are a lot of areas that have been neglected for a very long time, 20, 30 years. And if you look at the city's 5-year improvement plan, for the most part, I mean, it's an important plan, but it can't get to everything. And so what we've done is we put together a small package of money, maybe about $6 million, that will go directly into the 7 or 8 poorest neighborhoods in the district and give them infrastructure help that they otherwise would not get. And so part of the bond ask is going to be to the rest of the district to say, look, be a good neighbor, help these folks out, help deliver something that they've never gotten before. We identified in just those 8 neighborhoods $30 million of need, but we're going to have to whittle it down to 6, and then hopefully if it's successful, we'll do it again and again. just telling you.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't want to plant the seed.
Yeah.
You know. This effort to make me make a fool of myself is not gonna happen.
Look at Jade, giving you a few minutes with Jade, and I think it will.
Does it look like I have my arm around him?
No, you're. Unless that's what y'all are going for.
There you go. That's state rep stuff. You gotta stop that. Diego, what's going on?
How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, it's actually almost
a year.
Almost a
To the
year
day, right?
to the day that Diego and I met for our very first interview. He was this wide-eyed candidate for District 1.
That's right, at Candlelight. Right?
And all of a sudden, he's Ava Perón.
You can take
Of
full,
District
you
1.
can take full credit.
No.
You kickstarted the whole thing.
But when we started talking about all that, and we got to the public got to know a little bit about you, we also stumbled upon your musical career, which I want to talk about a little bit more. How do you go about creating a new work? Is it something that just comes, or do you actually lock yourself in a room and?
You know, it depends. I've tried locking myself in a room before, and it doesn't really produce a lot. And some of the songs I like the most have kind of come together in 20 or 30 minutes, at least the main portions of them. But the way the music's made, you don't sit there and think, I want a song that sounds like this, and then you go and do it. You're always looking for sounds in all these different places. You're recording them. There's ambient sounds. You're playing with things to try to get the melody right. And at a certain point, you have all these disparate elements, and you realize that they fit together. But the song kind of makes it itself. I know that sounds ridiculous.
No, don't.
But I often don't sit there and think I want to make a song that sounds like this. I think the only thing I think is I want to make a song that's slow, or a song that's fast, or a song that's happy. Like I'll start with that. So it's sort of a tempo thing.
Does it end up being that?
Half the time it doesn't. Now, oftentimes I'll start something that's 115 beats per minute, and then by the end of it, it's an 85 beat per minute because it sounds better slower. So just how it goes.
Are you one of those people that just, like, once you get going, you don't stop, or do you go, no, I need to walk away from this?
It depends. Like for right now, I've got a song that I'm working on, and I've had that song sitting there for about a month. Part of it because I'm busy doing this stuff, which is great. But there might be a moment where I sit down and then knock out the rest of it in an hour and a half. I've got all the elements I need. It's just sort of sequencing it and patterning it. And there are other days where I can sit down and have, I think for the most part, the skeleton of a song in an hour or two. It just depends. I think every artist is like that.
Let's come back real quick to school district politics a little bit.
Okay.
So the Mayor Julian Castro endorsed Patty Radel for the District 5 seat last time around, and it caused Tom Lopez, who had been on there for really a generation, to go ahead and resign, to not run again, and so she won that seat.
Right.
And now we have the District 3 seat open. Is that something that you think council should get involved in again in any fashion?
I believe that council members have the prerogative to do what they want and endorse who. Some people will stay out of it completely. Some people pick and choose what they get involved with. I don't think that it's off the table, and I also don't think that these two entities operate completely independently of one another. Right? I mean, there is overlap. The politics do touch clearly. Alamo Stadium is a good example of that. So I didn't think it was inappropriate for me to get involved in that at all. In fact, I thought it was very appropriate. So to the extent that other council people want to get involved in these things, I think that's a prerogative.
So I assume you're going to run for a second term?
I think that's.
Yeah, you think that's a pretty good assumption.
I think
at
it's
this point, right?
a fair
good.
bet.
All right, good. So you seem like sort of a long-term planner. What are some of your long-term goals from the district?
Well, I want to continue to deliver things to neighborhoods that have been ignored for a long time. At the same time, I want to make sure that the neighborhoods that are treasures, Monte Vista, King William, River Road, that they continue to get the help that they need, Tobin Hill, to continue on that path. They're good models that you want to sustain. And then on top of that, we have to move the city forward. So with focusing on downtown, increasing development, bringing student housing, increasing the art presence downtown and everywhere. And those are things that I think improve the quality of life of everybody. And so my focus is on people, even if it's an economic development thing, even if it's a downtown thing, it's to benefit the people who live in this town, the residents. Because if we get that right, then the tourists will follow. You don't go somewhere, you don't go to, I don't know where you might go. Where do you go, Elaine? Where do I go
when I actually have free time?
When's your next vacation?
Oh, my next weekend. Oh, I go to New York City
Okay.
often. Yeah, okay, right.
Well, no one
So-
goes to New York and asks where the tourists are, right? They want to know where the people are. And so, if you make the whole city a place, you know, from the north to the south, east and west, if you make the city a place where residents want to spend time, the tourists will figure it out and spend time there anyway. So I think it's time to turn our attention to the folks who live here and get that right.
Did you feel some pressure to have lyrics in the beginning of your work?
No, not at all. People don't like listening to me talk, much less sing or rap. So I think that was perfect for me. Just put the music out. The other thing about music with no words is that people can sort of assign their own meaning to it. That's you know, as an artist, you like that. You know, for you, you're telling a story. People connect with it, relating it to their own life. Each person's life is so different that they connect with it a different way. And I always like hearing when people come and say, well, I was listening to this song, it made me think of this. I never thought of that when I was making it. That's cool.
No, a lot of people will write a song when they're 20, 25, 30 and go, wow, this is who I am as an artist. And then they have an experience, like, for instance, the election.
Right.
And there's a little bit of growing up that happens, you know, with an experience with people or in relationships. Do you see something changing and evolving in your work with this new piece?
I mean, the thing that's changing the most is the amount of time I have to do it. You know, city council comes first, and so I have a lot less time to focus on music, which is fine. But it also means that when I finally sit down to do it, you know, I'm not one of these guys who can sit there and make 40 songs and pick the best 12.
Right.
If I put a record out, let's say the next one I put out is 8 songs, so I have time for it. You're not getting 8 of 30, you're probably getting 8 of 9. Right? You're gonna get what I had time to do. But that also means that when I'm working on it, I don't let it go until I'm really, really happy with it. I don't make throwaway songs or throwaway beats. I just sort of stick with it until it's what I want it to be. The truth is that I believe that if you focus on the future, it's going to make you timid right now. And I can't afford to be timid. I'd rather get voted out for doing something that I'm cool with and feeling kind of crappy about myself by tiptoeing around things. So I'm not really thinking about it. I get asked a lot. That's the question I got asked the most on election day.
Asked a lot about
What
what?
you gonna do next?
Yeah. It's like, not what are you going to do now, it's what are you going to do next. Come on, guys.
You and the Castro twins were both raised by single parents,
Yes.
by single mothers. Do you think there's anything in particular that you all have in common because of that?
I certainly think that we see the value of mothers, and we look to our mothers as sort of superheroes. And I think that we also recognize how much support single moms need. You grow up watching your mom struggle to make it all happen, being that Swiss Army person doing everything. You know, and if you understand that that's sort of a common experience around the country and in this town.
Particularly in this town, it's a very common experience.
Right. So you certainly want to provide them with the support necessary, because clearly, not to toot my own horn, but clearly looking at those guys and myself, it's not a death sentence, right? Your trajectory isn't diminished because you're from...
You've done all right.
I've done okay,
Yeah.
you know. But your trajectory is not diminished because you come from a single mom, but they certainly need support. And as I've been older, I've thought about it more and more. She's incredible. And, you know, one awesome parent is certainly better than 2 crappy ones, that's for sure.
Last question. District 1, in my opinion, from where I'm standing, seems to have a huge responsibility to the city as far as the production of the arts go.
Right.
Because we're right in the center. The
Right.
tourists usually come in here and then they leave and they only see District 1. Is that a lot of pressure when you're making plans
No.
for the future of District 1?
Not really. I mean, the pressure for me doesn't come from the tourists. It comes from everyone who lives here who knows how much art there is.
Right.
And how much art isn't seen or heard. And so the pressure for me is to get it out. Because if you get that out and we sort of look under the hood and see how much is happening, the tourists are going to come. They're going to figure it out. They're going to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, how do we bring all of the art that we have here to the forefront?
It's like make the art and they will come. Is that what you're saying?
Well, Yes, except that I think the art's already made and being made. We just have to get it out and seen. I believe that we have enough art, enough artists, and the talent pool is deep enough that we can be a 24/7 art city like any other art city. We just have to find the appropriate ways to get it seen and heard. It's really an exposure thing as opposed to whether or not it's being produced.
Right. I lied. I have one more question.
Okay.
You were talking off camera also about your field office and how you have some art there that's being.
Right.
Can you just talk to me about that? That sounded interesting.
Well, the field office is cool. It's an old fire station, and so it's got sort of a funky shape. It's sort of artsy in its own way.
Just very District 1.
Right. You know, there's an empty building. We don't
Right.
pay rent. We move in.
Yeah.
But there's a local artist named Daffyd. That's what his artist name is, Daffyd, Daphid, and he does these great sort of stencil portraits. And being a civil rights guy, I commissioned a sort of a civil rights wall. I've got 6 little paintings. I'm trying to remember who it is. On the left, I've got Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, JFK, Cesar Chavez, Gandhi, and did I say Rosa Parks?
Yes.
Okay, Rosa Parks. I think that's it.
There's so many artists
Right.
here in San Antonio that don't have that opportunity to do something like that.
I mean, if you
right?
talk to him, I'm not sure he would say that having his work in my office has done a lot for him. But I certainly like it. It's good.
I would. So thank you so much, Diego.
Sure.
Councilman for District 1 here in San Antonio, Texas. I'm Jade Esteban Estrada, and you are watching Who Runs This Town. I want to know.
What else is going on in District 1? You called it the most important district as far as the arts go. the
I
other
think
day.
so
Why do you
because
think that is?
because tourists come to town and they kind of only just stay in District 1 sometimes. No offense to the other districts, but you know, you come and see the Alamo, you stay in the downtown hotels, you come to, you know, this whole area has
What
a
do
lot
you
of
think
art
you do in
galleries.
District 10? I mean, I would totally go to District 10 and hang out for the day if I knew what to do.
Shopping! We're here right in front of the John H. Wood Jr. United States Courthouse, which has some interesting history.
That's exactly right. John H. Wood, named after a judge who was assassinated during a very famous drug trial by Woody Harrelson's father, no less. The style of architecture has a great name. It's like Brute Moderne or something like that, which it is. It's
Sounds good.
Brutish, but in a like a fabulous way. I love it. I love this building. And so the federal courthouse is actually going to relocate closer to downtown proper. And there was some talk originally that as part of the Hemisphere makeover that the courthouse would go away. Not everybody's a fan of it. I love it. I call it the alien mushroom.
If I were to go to another planet, I'd expect to see mushrooms that look just like that.
So this is one of my favorite houses in Hemisphere, Jade. I love it. This was one of the original grand houses along what was Goliad Street. You know, this was a thriving old neighborhood, one of the oldest neighborhoods in San Antonio when they raised it to make way for Hemisphere 68.
Wow.
So one of the exciting things about the redo here is that they're really going to try to make it like a community again. They're going to bring in housing. People will live here. There will perhaps be a streetcar along here. There will be walkable, bikeable. Some of it will even be drivable again. So I think that'll be really exciting. It breaks my heart that it's boarded up.
It will rise again like a phoenix. And I remember that house over there used to be the Melodrama Playhouse back in, I believe, at least 1988. That was the first place I ever did a show in as an actor.
And what
I
was
was
the show?
4. It has a lot of history here, as this whole area does. And that's what we're trying to find out here. Who runs this town, and the future of San Antonio is going to be in their hands. We're trying to find out who that is. And talking to Diego Bernal from District 1 was very insightful, especially as far as arts are concerned. Rounding
For
it
the
up.
next episode of Who Runs This Town, where do people go?
We can go to sachismed.com to find out more information. That's SACHISME.com.
sachisme.com. What is chisme?
Chisme means gossip
Chisme
or
means
chicken.
who runs this town.
Yeah.